Okay? Remember what a monomial is. A monomial is a single term that could have a coefficient, a number in front, and variables. And so in each of the brackets, we have a monomial. Sometimes that monomial is just a single number. Okay? Sometimes that monomial is just a single variable. Sometimes we have variables and numbers. Sometimes we have lots of variables and a number. So in each of the brackets is one monomial. Some of these questions are multiplying 3 monomials together. When you're multiplying monomials, and you might want to put a note of this in your notes, so make sure that you're following along here, we multiply the coefficients those are the numbers, and I'll say numbers in front because they're written in front of a variable. And we also, so this is number 1, number 2, we multiply the variables. Multiplying monomials is really quite simple. When the two things, as in the first example, are just numbers, okay, this just says 5 times -4. So we still have to remember some of our stuff from the first semester, okay, and some stuff from previous years. Do you know what 5 times 4 is? 20. And then what happens when you do a positive number times a negative number? It's negative. So that first one is just going to be -20. Okay? As far as multiplying, we just had to do step 1 because we just had numbers. Multiply the numbers together. There were no variables. Okay? In the second one, a 3 and an x, it's just going to be 3x. The coefficient in front of the x is like a 1. 3 times 1 is still 3. There's only one variable, so there's nothing you need to do there. It's just 3 times x. When you're multiplying x times 6, it's like the numbers are a 6 and a 1. If you multiplied 6 and 1, you would get 6. The only variable is an x, so you'd write 6x. The fourth one. The number in the first one's an 8. What's the number in the second one? A -1. So -1 times 8 will be -8, and then the only variable is the x, so you just have to write -8x. So far, so good? Okay. Number in front here is a -1, and here you have a -2. So it's going to be a negative times a negative is positive. 1 times 2 is 2. So you just get 2x. First one with variables in each one. -2 times -5. So we multiply our numbers first. Okay. 2 times 5 is 10. Will this be positive or negative if you have a negative times a negative? Positive. So we got positive 10. And then we multiply our variables, and this is the first time we have a variable in each one. So if you have x times x, how do you write that? Close. How do you write that? You use an exponent. Repeated multiplication is an exponent. So x times x, that's the same as x squared. Can you see yourself sometimes thinking you want to write 2x? Okay, that's going to be tempting. So again, all of the definitions that we learn, it's important to go back to and say, oh yeah, repeated multiplication, that's an exponent. What are the numbers in front here? Well, x and y are the variables. What are the coefficients? 1 and 1. So 1 times 1 would still be 1. And multiply your variables, this will just be x, y. Numbers in front. A -1 times a +1. Will be negative. You can write -1 if you want, but you don't have to write the 1. And then the variables, a times b, will just be ab. Numbers in front, now we have 3 of them. We have a 2, a 1, and a 1. If you multiply 2 times 1 times 1, still 2. And then you multiply your variables, m, n, and p. Multiply your numbers. Is this one going to be positive or negative? Negative. 4 times 3 is 12. And then multiply your variables, x, y. Okay, I want you to try the mental math here. Multiply your numbers in front. Multiply your coefficients. 2 times 3 times 2. Ready? Did you get it right? 2 times 3 times 2? 12. Multiply your variables. All the variables are different, so you'll just get x, y, z. Okay? Mental math first. You got an answer in your head? Did you get, for multiplying the numbers, -10? And you'll find that this is going to really help you as well. Okay? If you spend the math class being 5 seconds behind me just to write down the answers, okay, you learn about the same amount of math doing that as you do while sleeping. Next to nothing. Because you're just not paying attention and not trying to get it. If, when I give you a little bit of time ahead of time, if you try to get that answer in your head before I write it down, okay, like what happens when I multiply y cubed times y? Okay, you can check when I write it, is that what I thought? And if that's not what I thought, and I don't know how you got that, Mr. JR, then you can say, how do you get y to the 4 again? Why is it y to the 4? And if you ask that question, I can explain it, and then maybe the next time you're able to get it faster than me. Next one, x times x squared. Okay, and that's great. You're figuring it out before me. I love that. Try to keep it in your head, because someone else who's trying to figure it out, they haven't got there yet. So I want everybody to get something in their head first. Repeated multiplication, this will be x cubed. Last one, multiplying the numbers in front. And did you get it? -40. Then multiplying your variables. You have x squared times an x squared. Gives you x to the 4. So here's a summary of what we just did. Okay? We multiplied our coefficients, the numbers in front. We do that always first. Okay? Remember, a negative times a negative is positive. A positive times a negative is negative. This number 2 is just a review from what we did in first semester. If the variables are different, write them beside each other, because multiplying x times y is just xy. But if the variables are the same, Then we have to think of our exponents unit, and we have to, when multiplying exponents, you can add the exponents. You can think of the definition, right? If I have x cubed times x to the 5, exponents are repeated multiplication. This would be x times x times x, and this one would be x times x times x times x times x. In the end, we would have 8x's all multiplied by each other. We could do this quicker if we think about it and say, hey, the shortcut is this, that I need to add the exponents. Because this means I have 3 of them multiplied repeatedly, and here I have 5 repeated multiplications. So in the end, I'm going to have 8 repeated multiplications. Okay, we're going to take a little bit of time. Take out your textbooks. I see that a couple of people have started leaving theirs here. Okay, it's a good thing. Oh, we've got a couple examples we're going to do, and then I'm going to give you some homework. Okay, b cubed times b squared. Get an answer in your head. Don't blurt it out. Think about repeated multiplication. Did you get b to the 5? And the last example, lots of variables. Step 1, what's the number in front going to be? We have 5x squared y here, negative 4x cubed y squared. Perfect, negative 20. Then how many x's? 5. X to the 5. Perfect. So multiplying monomials, those are the 2 main things you've got to remember. Okay, I need to multiply my numbers together. I need to multiply my variables together. But in multiplying your numbers together, that reminds you of some of the stuff that we did before with positives and negatives. When multiplying the variables together, that reminds you of some of the stuff that we did in our exponents unit. Okay, and then in your notes, you've got, in your note packages, there's some questions to do from page 161.